Today's episode of Thunderheads is brought to you by Wellness Perspective. Wellness Perspective makes it easier for you to live healthfully. They're also making it easier for us to do this podcast. Check them out at mywellnessperspective.com to learn more.
You're listening to Thunderheads, a podcast for Thunder fans by Thunder fans.
Welcome to Thunderheads season recap today, boys.
Ooh.
If you're tuning in to YouTube Live, we're psyched to have you. I am Brandon Soul, joined by the Thunder Tie himself, Mr. Justin Wright.
We will sing one song for my old Kentucky home.
It's one of them Kentucky Derby songs.
I know this is because of the Kentucky Derby.
It's my old Kentucky home, the official state song of Kentucky, which is played. It's a big deal tomorrow. So
That's what I said.
Kentucky Derby.
Do all states have official state songs?
Yeah.
What's ours? Just the Oklahoma song?
Oklahoma.
We've discussed
Oh.
this. We talked about that with AD.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. We did.
Rogers and Hammerstein.
And if he had been there, he would have immediately corrected us.
That's true. Yeah, because we didn't know what we were talking
With
about.
the exclamation point. No, don't forget that.
Indeed.
Doctor's in the house. It's Rob Larson.
Hey, in my professional medical opinion, that season sucked.
Oh, hey, save it. Save it, Doc. Save it, Doc.
Right.
Dark and Stormy. Jason Lewis.
Yes, sir.
Today, we're going to take a look at the season, as Rob said, as a whole. We're going to discuss some of the players' comments from the exit interviews, as well as some of the comments from Presty's presser, because there were some interesting ones. Right?
Yeah.
There were.
Thank you. But first, disaster of the week. It's been a while, and I got a good one for you
Oh.
guys. This is
Bring it.
courtesy of ABC News.
That's how you know it's going to be good.
It's one of the top 5 news places. A former substitute math teacher at a high school in Connecticut is facing charges after allegedly encouraging boys to fight in his class during school hours, according to state police. Police in Montville, Connecticut arrested 23-year-old Ryan Fish on Thursday following an investigation that began in December of 2017, according to a police report. Fish allegedly forced students at Montville High School to engage in slap fights, slapping each other, in which male students were encouraged to slap each other across the face and head.
That's sexist. Only males?
According to the police report, which refers to 14 boys ages 14 to 16 as witnesses. The fights were captured on cell phone video,
Of course they were.
and Fish... Yeah, I mean, what do you expect them
Yeah.
to do? Yeah,
All
seriously.
phones in a bowl whenever you go into that classroom. Otherwise, you can't do this.
Do you think that's a thing in class? I mean, I'm sure we have teachers listening now. Like when you enter classes, you gotta.
No,
'cause
if you do
I even had
that-
to do that in school.
I've seen some cool things where the way that teachers will take roles sometimes, they've just got like a thing on that, like near the door. You have to put your phone in the little slot, and that's how you mark your attendance.
Smart.
Need a burner phone then.
So like,
If I was a kid.
smart thinking.
Yep.
Like I said, the fights were captured on cell phone video, and Fish can be heard on a video seeming to give one of the students fighting directions, such as at one time saying something to the effect of "Move this way, away from the door."
You got to be smart about it. You don't want to get hit by a door.
Or you also don't want anyone
have the
walking
Anyone to
by.
see it through
Yeah,
that
They have
window.
there's a little cutout that everyone can see. And then also, quote, "These strikes appeared to me to be full force strikes with open hands," an officer said in the police report. And you can see that on the video, obviously. Fish was escorted by security to the principal's office in October of 2017, where he told the principal that boys will be boys, and that he grew up in the country where boys do stuff like that.
All right.
As coordinated by their teachers.
Can anyone confirm?
So whenever I was in high school, the wrestling coach, they had boxing gloves. And so in his class, he was a science teacher. If anybody got into like an argument in his class, he would let them go to the wrestling room, put on the boxing gloves if they wanted to, and they could box for like a few minutes.
Wow.
See, I like that.
That sounds illegal.
Yeah,
it does.
it's definitely
There's
suspect.
Concussions could happen. It's not good.
I mean, I think the
CTE.
biggest problem in this whole thing was that one of those kids broke the first rule. You don't talk about slap.
Yeah.
That is true. The slap club.
But he probably got the shit slapped out of him, and he's like, "I'm gonna talk about Slap Club."
Mom, you let him hit me. I don't like it.
He has denied facilitating the fights, according to the police report. He told police in January that 2 boys began slapping each other when he briefly left the classroom. He also told police, "I just try to be the teacher that the kids could come to and actually express themselves and actually work through their issues and kind of have a social thing," the police report said. Mr. Fish stated, "I would let them be teenagers and let them get their energy out." I will admit that at one point I did egg them on. Yeah. He's like, yeah!
Kick his ass. I got 5 on Billy.
I was going to use Billy as my example name.
It's a good,
Good
example
chemistry.
name.
In a separate conversation with police, Fish said the truth is I'm an idiot. Yep. and wanted to befriend them. I'm immature. Well, a 23-year-old, that seems young for a substitute, right? I mean, I guess.
That's the age
Wait, a
teachers allow.
substitute?
Yeah, a substitute, right?
Oh, wait. He has total reign to make them slap fight in this case. This is all that should be
Changes
happening
it,
in this
yeah.
class.
All things go.
Yeah.
Fish was charged with 2 counts of risk of injury to a minor, 4 counts of reckless endangerment to the second degree, and breach of peace in the second
Sounds a
degree.
little far.
He pleaded not guilty to all charges in state court in Norwich, Connecticut on Thursday. He was released on a promise to appear at his next court hearing on May 8th. It is unclear if Fish has a lawyer currently, as none is listed by the court.
Is he one
Have
of them,
fun
is
on
he one of,
Tuesday.
is he one of them law teachers?
Probably gonna need to get a lawyer there, bud.
Sounds a little bit like a loose cannon. He's like, I got this. And no big deal.
At least maybe now he has some direction in his life. Like, you can do these things, just not in the classroom.
Yeah. And if you're a teacher, maybe don't be friends with your kids.
That's
like,
true.
best friends.
Well, you buy a really old, crappy, rundown house. You start a soap company. You admit a bunch of these students in, and they slap fight, and then they take down a bunch of credit card corporations. It's been done.
Yes. You got to make soap.
That is a true story.
You have to make soap.
You have to
That's
make soap.
His name is Robert Paulson.
Yeah.
All right, guys, let's move on to some Thunder talk. It's been a while, all right? We haven't done a full pod since after Game 5.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
been a little
That
over
was
a
a
week.
cool game.
We gave ourselves a week to let our thoughts settle, our feelings, our opinions kind of settle down. No overreactions, nothing like that. I'm sure we'll have some to put
Yeah,
out
we're
there.
definitely level-headed now. That's
But-
for sure.
Let's start here, and I'm going to start with you, Rob. Do you consider this season a failure?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you get, 2 games more than you got last season? I mean...
1.
Okay, well, oh, yeah. Okay, 1 game more than you got.
Plus the playoff game. So you win 1 more in the regular season and 1 more playoff game than you won last year, so 2 more games.
So, anyways,
Yeah.
now that I can finish, you stood the white guy blank. Yeah, no, I definitely think that this is a failure. Like, you can't, for better or worse, like, we had high expectations for this team. It was just expected that they would be a contender. Nobody was saying they're going to win the championship. But to go out like they did, to lose in the first round to Utah, to struggle through the regular season to where, 5 games left, it seems like this team was kind of teetering. Maybe they'll miss the playoffs if things go really bad.
Right.
I think when you take injuries into account, which I'm sure we'll
One
get into.
injury.
Oh, yeah, the biggest one. I mean, guys missed games throughout the year. But, yeah,
Sure.
Robertson missing a big chunk of the season is a huge deal that should be taken into account. But, yeah, the season, just lumping it all together, that's a failure.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I don't know how you could see the other side of it, really. I mean, I guess if you want to take into account, like, the acquisition of Paul George, if we can stay away from what he's going to do this summer and everything, but if you want to take that into account as a part of the season, then I guess you have to a little, right? Because that is part of it, and so you at least put yourself in the conversation for him as a free agent. That
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily make this a successful season.
No.
Right, yeah. I mean, if you're including the offseason of last year, I think there was a bit of a success in getting Russ to sign for 5 years. Like, that was a big success.
Yeah, if you want to consider
there.
that too, yeah.
However, what you were talking about, like, you added one All-Star and one former All-Star to the mix, and so you would expect to win more than just one more game and barely make the playoffs, sort of, and then get kicked out in the same round that you lost last year. So that's not progress to me.
Yeah.
I don't even think it's not even that they lost in this, like, the first round, just like they did last year without Paul George and Carmelo Anthony. Like, it's how you lost those games as well. Like, the only 2 that you won in the playoffs were Paul George going nuts, and then you have Russ completely taking over after you're down 25.
And
Paul
then
George
also,
was-
and Paul George being really
Paul
good.
George was really good in that game, but those are the only 2 you won. Unless that happened, you got beat pretty easily.
Right, and that's something that really, if you look at this entire season, that we kept saying that all year. It was in the way that this team lost over and over and over.
Yeah.
And when they did lose, it looked terrible. And there was that little bitty stretch and little flashes that you could say there's potential here, maybe later.
What was the longest winning streak of this season? Was it seven?
Seven games.
Yeah.
7 games. So yeah, you're right. There was little flashes, mostly when Robertson was a part of the squad. Obviously, I think like when Robertson went down, that team was really starting to catch their stride, and that's it was a really unfortunate time. And you definitely like Presti said in his press conference, he said, yeah, it was a huge blow to us, but you cannot it's not you cannot make that excuse. Like he is a one-sided player for the most part. Like you cannot let that guy make that much of an impact on your team.
Right, like he's a very important part of the team, and he made. I think they figured out a way to use him with this team that made them all work together really well for a bit. And then when that happened, the thing about what Presti was saying, it's like even if that was a huge piece that went down, like you can't make the excuse that you didn't get better at that after that. You didn't figure it out after that. I mean, look at Boston. They lost like Kyrie and Gordon Hayward, and they're still in the playoffs and winning games.
Well, isn't that the frustrating thing with this team? Because seemingly you lose it with the Thunder. Rob, you talked about injuries, and obviously Robertson went down. He's a huge piece to this team, and you talked about some guys miss games here and there, and yeah, they did. Adams missed 4 or 5 games. Paul George missed 4 or 5 games, whatever. Russ missed a couple games. Melo missed a few games, but that's normal.
Wish Melo would have missed a few more.
Expected.
All teams have those things,
Sure.
but other teams seem to be able to deal with those things better. The Thunder are so star reliant. They rely on their top players so much that then you look like, to your point, Jason, then you look at like Boston.
It's
You're like,
sad to watch.
it'd be nice if you could have other guys step up, but it's just like no hope.
They're also playing in the East where,
Sure.
you get a little bit easier of a road to go through.
But it's
Definitely,
just
but-
like watching them also as a team. You're like, oh,
They're a team.
they look like basketball players.
But that's the frustration with this season, right? Is we never really it was 2 steps forward and 2 steps back with this team.
Right.
And every once in a while, it was 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and you take another step forward. But then it'd be 2 steps back. There was just
And then at some point, you're just two-stepping.
like if you look at that graph of progression for this team, it's just like I don't know. It's just kind of there's not much to it, and that's the frustrating thing.
It's your total displacement there. It was never really high, really low. It was just kind of a flat line the entire time. Where you saw all of that, like, oh man, like they can do this. Like you saw them rip off, like, oh, they actually can't do this. There's no way they can do this. And just from October 15th to right now, based on the expectations of everything and what we thought would happen, this is just so soul-crushingly disappointing.
Yeah.
Especially with everything that's at stake.
I think what makes it so disappointing is like we saw like how good this team would be. You're talking about like the really high highs, and then you look at the it's just so incredibly low.
Like lower than you thought it could be.
That was the frustrating part. Is like they looked so good at points, and then it was so frustrating how bad they looked at points, and it still brings up the question, why? Like who is that on? Is that to me? I mean, how much blame is it between the players, between Billy? Like I don't know. There has to be, and we'll get into Presti's comments, but like Billy Donovan, I thought for sure wouldn't make it through, especially with the first round exit and the way that you look. Like, how can Billy make it through that? And
Well, we can talk about that right now. I mean, so are you saying that obviously if someone's listening and doesn't know what Sam Presti said, you probably do, but he basically confirmed Billy Donovan will be back next season. Are you against this? Do you kind of think that regardless of what happens with Paul George, regardless of what happens with Melo, anything like that, you think they should have looked elsewhere?
yeah, I think that it's not extremely fair to Billy Donovan, but it is what it is. Like it didn't work out. Whether it was however much like blame you want to put on Billy Donovan, I feel bad for the guy because he's put in such a difficult spot.
Yeah.
Like,
well, do you think
look
that's
at-
kind of the reason? Maybe
I hope not, because like I hope that Presti just thinks Billy Donovan is a really good coach and he'll get this turned around. I hope it doesn't have anything to do with like all of this change that he's had to deal with, and I just feel bad for the guy, and I just think he needs a little bit more time. I hope it's not that.
Or that we owe him $12 million and we don't want to just pay.
No, if you want to say that's also, I mean, that's kind of, that would have been a bad part of letting Billy Donovan go.
Yeah.
But like it still feels like there just needs to be some kind of a shakeup with coaching.
I think that the counterpoint to that would be that one thing that Sam Presti has kind of preached over the last, when you look at exit interviews last year and coming into this year, is the fact that continuity. This team has not had any continuity in the past couple of years. I mean, your continuity lies Russell Westbrook, Steven Adams, and Andre Robertson. There's your continuity, and Billy Donovan.
Don't forget about Nick.
And Nick, who isn't a part of this team. Like, he doesn't make a difference on this team. But right. So I think that's where you see Sam Presti doesn't. I think he thinks it's unfair to Billy Donovan to let him go. I think he's like, we got to give this guy a fair chance of, hopefully we can go into next year and have this same team.
Yeah, but if you don't, then what is it next season? If you struggle next season, it's like, well, Paul George left.
Well, if Paul George, would you agree with if Paul George leaves, and even if Melo's here or stays, whatever? I feel like it's a better position for Billy Donovan. Not the fact that Paul George is out the door, but the fact that, number one, Billy Donovan gets another year with the guys, and number two, he has a younger team. He has less egos around.
I mean, I guess that's a good point, but I still think that there has to be some accountability for what just happened. Like the mess that we just watched. That season was really, really bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very, very,
very,
very bad.
So
Serge is distraught about it right now.
So to me, whenever you don't do anything, I do worry about what does that say about accountability? And I don't know. We have constantly said trust Presti. We trust Presti. And so it's just getting more difficult to just say that and just be like, yeah, he knows what he's doing. We're fine.
I think it's hard, though. If you go into another season, you make another big move.
Right.
Another big change. Then you're just, are you asking this team too much? Are you just expecting to catch lightning in a bottle? That's what it seems like at that point if you're doing that. And so I get keeping him around. Am I sure that he's the right coach for this team? No. But I get it. I get why you would want to keep him around.
It's why. You've seen Billy Donovan coach this team really well. You've seen that he has a lot of potential as an NBA coach. He's run an offense with previous teams in previous years that's worked out really well. He has preached defense. Things have been good in other times. You see all the potential. It's just this year, at no point was it consistently put together whatsoever.
Yeah, to me, I think that Presti is basically saying, look, it was a really hard job. You might have had the hardest job in the NBA this season as a coach. And you had to deal with Melo. You had to deal with egos like crazy. Now, did Billy Donovan handle this? Great. It doesn't appear like he did.
No. Right.
Oh.
It doesn't appear like he was the right coach for this team.
Definitely not with Melo. That to me that's the biggest issue that I have with Billy Donovan is it seems like, I don't know if he was kind of starstruck at looking at what Melo has done. Who this guy is. Mm-hmm. From his college years, Billy Donovan had a really good view. And so I don't know if there's something there, but it just seems like Melo was the worst person to bring in for Billy because there was something about it. It just seemed that there was something with Melo that he just continued to have faith in him whenever it was clear watching him that it wasn't there.
Well, then you look at when Patterson actually had, the stretches where he was playing well, and Grant where it was that true stretch for the system that Billy Donovan wanted, and Melo didn't fit that role, but other guys did.
Yeah.
So and it's just Melo was the true square peg in a round hole for Billy Donovan's offensive system, and everything just kind of broke down from there.
And how about Abrinas? Talking about Abrinas, we talked about him so much where it was what is Billy doing with him? You're bringing him in at the most difficult spots for a guy who's struggling.
And then in the end, in the Utah series, he looked like one of the most effective players that the Thunder had.
Yep.
Yeah, through the end of the year, really, he had one of the highest plus minuses on the team, which take it for what you will, but still, the whole time it just seemed like Billy couldn't figure it out this year.
I'm with you. It's hard to argue against that, but it also seems like one of those years where everyone's at blame. You said something earlier, who do you put the blame on? But it seems like top to bottom, and maybe that's where Presti's getting hung up because he's. in what realistic universe does it make sense to have a third-year head coach as the head coach of a three-headed monster of Russ, Melo, and PG, guys that have all been in the league longer than this guy?
Right.
Longer than your coach. I mean, why would Melo listen to you when there's no history to say that Melo listens?
Yeah. Like he doesn't even listen to coaches that have been there for a long time.
Yeah.
And
The thing that's sad here, right, is it seems like this team was just treading water the entire year. Just treading water, and then they get to the playoffs, and it's like, I don't want to say self-sabotage, but they just couldn't hold it anymore. And they revert back to just like, they look like a team that never played together.
Yeah.
And they just completely abandoned anything offensively. And that's my biggest issue. Defense was fine this year. Even without Andre Robertson, it could have been better. It was terrible at times. But you're going to have nights like that.
Yeah.
But offensively, man, this team just never
yeah, it's
figured
like they
out.
didn't know what to do. And that's kind of where, when you're talking about Billy, it's like, hey man, could you not have like gotten something to work? Like anything. Like it, like what you're saying, like towards the end of the season, like you've been with this team for a while. Like, could you not implement something that they're like, okay, we'll run that. Like, and they did have like that hawk play, I guess, that they always tried. And people were like, okay, we know what this is.
But it's one action with this team, and then if that action doesn't work, there's nothing.
Yeah.
And to Rob's point, that's coach. Your players aren't responding to coach if that's the case, right? You're not listening. Like, you think he's telling you to do that and like, all right, Russ, just fire up 43 shots. That's not what he wants.
No.
Right.
That's not what he wants at all.
Yeah.
I think Billy Donovan kind of gets caught in this. There's, excuse me. There's been this shift. Like, you've got your old school coaches like Greg Popovich who are kind of going away now because of the way the NBA is moving forward, and with the millennial generation taking over. Like, you handle our generation a little bit differently. So Billy Donovan's kind of caught in between this. Like, he's a little bit of the new age coach because he has been in the college ranks and comes into the NBA. Well, now, instead of just having Russell be the old guy and then Nick Collison be the old guy and then a bunch of young guys, well, now you've got Paul George and Carmelo. You've got a bunch more old guys that are so the focal point of the entire team, that if you can't get through to them, it gets even hard. It makes it even harder to deal with all the younger guys.
It's like a trickle-down effect.
Exactly. And so you needed one of those hard-nosed, like, older coaches for those three guys. But then does it work with the bench? Does it work with the other young guys? He's kind of caught in that weird position where I feel like his message is a little bit watered down when you've got three older, great players like that.
Yeah, and it, like, with me, so I like Melo as a person. I'm just going to say that right now. Like, I think he was a really good person, like,
That's something
in the
someone
locker room,
says
like,
to preface when you're about to
because
totally
I
trash
am
him.
about to trash him for the rest of this podcast. So first,
I don't think X, but Y.
No, but for the record, I think we all agree with you.
Yeah.
Everyone loves Melo, like hearing
As
him
the guy.
talk, as him. But continue.
and as him being around, but when you're talking about putting a blame on someone for the season, like I don't completely blame him because he was like, I mean, he did choose to come here, but he was asked to do something he's never done before. But when you don't 100%, and like I think his comments at the end of the season are clear that he did, like maybe at the start or all the way to December-ish or January, he maybe did buy in 100%, but then it clearly went away. Like he stopped giving his all to that idea of being this player that they wanted him to be.
And maybe it's unfair of us to expect him to just be able to do that.
Yeah.
Maybe
and
that's
maybe it
unfair.
is.
Yeah, and maybe, but at the same time, what it feels like to me, and we talked about this, is that I think he did try to sacrifice. Obviously, he did. He could have shot
Yeah,
a lot more.
for sure.
You saw times this season where Melo would make that extra pass, where he could have shot the ball. He was making solid plays, smart offensive plays. Sometimes seemed like the smartest offensive player on the team at times when you're talking about motion offense and stuff. But did he buy in 100%?
Yeah.
He might have bought in on the kind of like on the surface.
Like the idealism of it.
In his
I
heart,
think he was in it.
In
But
his
yeah.
heart of hearts, did he really buy in? Because in the Utah series, now say that he just didn't get opportunities because no, he didn't get a lot of opportunities. His shots just dwindled and dwindled and dwindled. But at the same time, he could have got shots if he wanted. He played minutes. He could have got shots, but it just kind of felt like that he had given up at that point. He didn't care. I mean, there was a report that he showed up so early to Game 5.
Yeah, that
So
was.
he didn't know what time the game started.
Right.
He didn't know what time the game started. And instead of just hanging out at the arena, getting up shots or whatever, he left.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think he's in it. I just didn't think he was in it.
Yeah, and like when you start taking away his minutes and stuff like that, I mean, it obviously irked the guy.
Yep.
And it's like
You see him on the sidelines during that comeback where
Right.
he's getting into it with
He's
Cheeks.
pissed because he wants to be a part of it, which is almost good in the fact that like, oh, he cares and wants to be a part of it, and that's cool that he cared that much. But like, if you want to do whatever's right for the team, if you're 100% in and you want to win, like then take what the coach says and do it.
Hey, I want to walk down there on the floor when they're in a comeback or any situation to help the team out as much as I
You
can.
just run out on
that
the
doesn't
floor?
mean I'm the right guy to do it.
Right.
If you can step back and realize that you're not the person to actually do it, then you need to sit the fuck down.
Yeah, I think he's struggling to kind of accept who he is.
Yeah.
To what's happened, like who he is as a player.
Well,
now.
he's also changing. Like, he's not as good as he used to be, and that's the biggest. Like, for somebody who is so good at doing something, whenever you are not doing that very well, like that has to be extremely difficult
Yeah.
and something that's just hard to like
Definitely.
understand and to be able to try. And then you're not as good as you were. You have to try and fit into this new system, doing something that you're not used to. Like, the whole thing is just difficult.
Yeah, I
And-
mean, you have like a super ego. You have to have a super ego to
right.
get to that place that he got to, being that good. And then when you start to see it fall away, and you're like, oh shit.
It's got to be hard
And
to
then
accept,
if
right?
somebody's like, hey, you should come off the bench, you're like, I can't do that. That's not me, man.
I think that to me it feels like Melo knows.
Yeah.
I think he knows. I just think it's hard for him to accept it.
Well, I think there could just be some doubt there where he's like, you guys aren't using me right, and that's why I'm struggling.
Or is that just
there
him
could be
telling
some-
himself that?
Yeah.
I don't know. It
Yeah,
could be.
it's-
I think he's so like he could be so feeling himself that he could be like,
I'm starting to
put me back somewhere else. Like, I'll turn this.
I'm
around
starting to
quick.
think the Knicks like damaged him with what he went through. I think
yeah.
he's like damaged.
Yeah, you might be right.
Do we need to send him a flash drive with a playlist that's just titled Melo, are you trying to convince me or yourself? And it's just Fleetwood Mac's Landslide like 20 fucking times.
The thing that sucks about this is, we don't have much good to say about Melo right now.
Yeah.
But it's not all on him, man.
Yeah, I mean,
Like,
he had good games.
Russell Westbrook did not have a
Couple.
great season.
No, he didn't.
He had a down season,
Very
probably
good.
his worst season in maybe since he was a third-year player. Like, it's been like he shot the ball pretty well as the season went on, better and better and better. But it's kind of on him as the point guard to get this team going offensively. And when you see them completely fall apart offensively in the playoffs, he's got to take ownership on that, and a lot falls on his shoulders
Yeah,
there.
but with that, it's so. I mean, I agree with you. Like, Russ should have played better, but it's also like whenever Russ wasn't doing incredible things, this team wasn't very good.
Yeah.
Still, like Paul George with the bench didn't work out. Like, those numbers weren't good, and that didn't look very good. And so it's like, if you can't come off of the court and somebody else step up, somebody who's incredibly good at basketball doesn't come in and step up, what does that do to you then with your feelings of confidence or feeling like you don't have to do everything because you can rely on other people? Like, he's still it was better than it was the year before, but still this was still Russ's show. Like, this team went as Russ went.
Well, and as that, like, Zach Lowe wrote that really awesome piece on like how you can't run the Thunder's offense as just solely a Russ show.
Right,
basically.
it's centered around one player.
So like, it's almost like when Russ goes to sit down, it's like your offense doesn't work because the whole system is built on that guy being out there, and when he's not, it's just like LeBron doesn't.
So
when
I don't
he's on
know.
the bench, like their team
Well,
doesn't work. very well.
LeBron, but I don't know if I agree with, because like you've seen even with Houston, like when Harden goes off like that team, especially last year as well, like that team was so dependent on or that scheme was around Harden.
Right.
But whenever he would come off, I mean, they were
They just
still
kind of play a different.
they're still fine. Like I still, part of that also I think is on Presti not putting good enough players around Russ and these other guys.
I'm with you. I feel like the way this team is built, it's totally built around Russ and kind of guys to complement him mostly on the defensive end, I think.
Yeah.
And I think this team is way too reliant on him being a hero, like you're saying.
Well, isn't it like this team still has a lot of remnants of being constructed for Russ and KD, and I think
Yeah.
like it almost seems like the whole Paul George get made sense because it was like, well, you can just slide him in and it's still built for those two guys. But then when you bring in Melo, that kind of like it kind of
Yes.
rocks the thing.
That's true. I mean, it just I agree with the Zach Lowe piece that you can't center your offense around one guy.
Entirely.
I think you have to evolve a little bit because if Russ isn't making shots, the game is you got to be able to make some threes. And Russ can't shoot the ball. Like, he's not shooting the ball this season in particular.
Yeah.
Like, his jump shot was bad this year.
Yeah.
Like, it was
flat. It was short.
He had a hitch in it or something. Like, he just didn't have confidence. He took an extra dribble at times. Just whatever reason, maybe it was that in the back of his mind he's trying to get these other guys involved too much. They have to have I get you to a certain extent you have to revolve your offense and your team around him because that's the type of player he is. Because he's not a guy that you're going to play off the ball and be like, all right, cut down and then go down screen, cut back out, and then backdoor cut. That's just not him.
Yeah, it would just be dumb to try to build a Warriors offense around him. Like, it just wouldn't work.
That's not exactly. But at the same time, there has to be a middle ground here.
Yeah, you need some system. Like, whenever it's like,
that's
hey,
not
this
working.
isn't working, so now run the stuff we talked about.
You need shooters and you need floor spacing. You need more of that than what you had this past year.
And do you think the worry there is that, I mean, because Russ isn't exactly the best drive and kick guy. I mean, I think he probably generated the most threes in the entire NBA this season. I think at one point that was a stat, and he had generated the most threes.
Yeah,
because
because Melo hit the most he's ever hit, and PG was like. Right up there on
I'm
his.
not saying makes, but as far as attempts, like catch and shoot threes, which obviously the ball's in his hands all the time, so he's going to. But I think you're right. You got to have more shooters as a team, but Russ has to. He's got some improvements he needs to make as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so do you think that Russ, so now he's like average a triple-double for 2 seasons in a row. And we know that like him getting a rebound is actually really helpful, but it also does put him out of position defensively when he does that thing where he's like, well, I'm going to go kind of hang out over here for a rebound. Does he need to stop doing that completely or just like sometimes maybe focus on his guy a little more? Or where's the problem at with that? Like his defense is what I'm kind of talking about. Like
the defense, his defensive issues are really covered up when Robertson's in there.
Right, yeah.
And when you have Robertson and Paul George out there, that makes Russ defensively such an
he
effective
can
player.
kind of be a free safety.
Yeah, his gambling.
That's where he's perfect.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So
maybe that's not as big of a deal when Robertson's back if you have PG back.
I don't make a huge deal out of Russ's defense. Like, I know it's bad sometimes, but a lot of really good players' defense is bad. He's got a lot of responsibility on this team.
For sure.
I want him to correct that responsibility first. We talked a lot about in the Utah series how off the ball, they didn't do it all year. All year, they never gave the ball to Paul George and just said, go to work. That wasn't the way they used him. And then the Utah series rolls around, and that's all they do with him.
Yeah.
I was so confused by that. But in doing that, so number one, that's a problem. That's a problem right there. Like, clearly you never established an offensive identity. And
They
then
didn't have an identity as a team the entire year except for that little bit.
never felt like a real team,
Yeah.
did they? But then, once you do start to do that, give the ball to Paul George to go to work, I mean, everyone just stands around. And then everyone stands around when Russ is going to work. And everyone stands around when Carmelo's going to work. There was just... And it was painful when you watch Utah just school them. And they're like, this is how you play
that hurt.
offense.
That like actually hurt my
Yeah.
soul.
Yeah, it makes them so easy to defend. but
Predictable.
Then it really comes down to, so then what was the issue there? Is Raymond Felton not a good enough backup point guard? Like, could you not rely enough on him? Obviously, nobody realistic is going to come in and be able to do exactly what Russ does on offense. But you need somebody that you can feel confident in, like not requiring so much out of Paul George because he's not comfortable doing that.
Do you think maybe Felton was more of a scoring point guard instead of somebody who could facilitate?
Yeah,
within?
I think
Like,
that's a good point.
If PG stays, maybe they get somebody like more of a facilitator.
There were times with that second unit where it felt like if Raymond Felton wasn't going to hit a three, they were going to struggle to hit three.
Yeah. That generating offense was
Impossible.
I mean, especially in the Utah series, how many times did we see late shot clocks? Like, the second team would actually run offense, but they just couldn't generate anything.
Yeah.
To your point, Rob, so this team very much lacks skill players. Very much. I mean,
Yes.
when you look at guys that, and when I say skill players, I mean guys that can dribble, shoot, and pass.
Yeah, I feel like we've talked about that a lot for a while.
But I know, Jeremy Grant's a really good player for this team, but he's not. He's probably the closest they have to a guy that can dribble,
Yeah.
shoot, and pass.
Yep.
And
Dribbling isn't.
And he's robotic as hell, man. Like, he's kind of a Baki.
Your long, freakishly athletic guy was great 5 years ago, but you can't build a team around long, freakishly athletic guys. Like, it's like Terrence Ferguson.
Uh-oh.
If he doesn't develop a shot, then He's
that's
just Josh Eustace again.
That's Presti's like go-to, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's not working right now unless he develops the shot. And if he doesn't, then ugh.
All right, guys. You know what time it is. I'm going to tell you about our sponsor, Wellness Perspective. Wellness Perspective is a growing community of regular people, just like you and me, and business partners that make it easier for you to live a happy, healthful life. You know this.
That is true. Wellness Perspective provides support, motivation, advice, and big-time discounts on the services, products, and memberships that are essential to living healthfully. They also got a new partner that I'm going to tell you about today, so listen up if you got bad eyes. Innovative Eye Care in Edmond. That's Innovative Eye Care. If you're one of them glasses wearers, you're about to get big-time discounts with these guys.
That is right. They offer Wellness Perspective members 20% off comprehensive eye exams and Optomap imaging.
Yep.
Nailed it.
As well as 10% off of frames.
10% off frames.
So if you're one of those 4 eyes, you know how expensive glasses
Wow.
can be.
Wow, Rob. Well, Innovative Eye
That's
Care is
offensive, man.
it's also ideal for those of you that don't have eye insurance like yourself. They absolutely work with you.
Like Brent. he said, yeah.
So you can check out all of Wellness Perspective partners like Innovative Eye Care at mywellnessperspective.com. And if you like what you see, sign up for their membership. It's just $7.97 a month. Tell them Thunderhead sent you, and we get a little extra cash in our pockets, so help us out.
We need it.
Wellness Perspective, helping you live a happy and healthy life.
All right, guys. So about Presti's presser, we've touched on it here and there. He totally owned up to the season.
Yes.
Very excited about that.
Yeah, that made me happy because I wasn't sure he was. I thought he was going to just talk his way completely around it.
He has a way of making you feel a little better, right? He has a way of, like, talking you off the ledge, so to speak. And then when talking about Melo, we spent a lot of time on Melo, and obviously Paul George is a huge kind of a factor this summer, obviously. When talking about the core of this team, it was almost calculated the way Sam Presti never mentioned Carmelo Anthony.
It was amazing.
Everything he does is calculated.
Yeah,
so.
and never mentioned Carmelo Anthony in anything. When talking about the core of this team, it was Adams, Paul George, Robertson, Russell Westbrook. Talking about him going forward.
Anything in the future or forward, Melo's name did not come up.
And then when it did come up, when questions were asked about him, he said, well, Melo's going to have to – he said, I respect him being honest, and that's the type of guy he is. He's going to be honest, yada, 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 which is true.
And he did continue to say, he did buy in and, was a super professional the whole year, which it seemed like he was.
And then proceeded to say, well, if he's got to decide himself if he wants to continue in this role, essentially is what he said. And then you flip it to what Melo said in his exit interview.
I can't be this guy.
Yeah, he said he doesn't think he's effective in this role.
Yep.
There's some things that Melo said that I agree with a little bit. When he says that I think we could have used me a little better, I agree. I don't think that he's a great player anymore, but I think that we could have used him better.
For sure.
Like, he's comfortable down. When he gets down on the block in the post, that's where he's comfortable.
Yeah.
The Thunder didn't do a good job of getting it to him in his comfortable spots. So I'll give Melo that. How do you see this shaking out, though? Is this a move from Presti to try to kind of push Melo out the door?
I think he's basically saying, hey, if you don't want to do the thing you did this year, since that's kind of what you're saying you don't want to do, then you probably shouldn't stay here. It seems pretty cut and dry. And there's
$28 million.
He's going to get that money. I'm pretty positive. But there are options for them, even if he doesn't opt out of that player option. So, but it seems like they're just being honest with each other. They're just saying, hey, I don't want to do this. And he's saying, well, you're either going to do that or you're going to just leave then.
Which is good because it feels like they both understand where each other stand. And so, going forward, that would make it easier.
Yeah.
Because you kind of... you can kind of get on the same page in that way, although they may not agree with what to do. At least you can kind of understand where each other are coming from. And I felt a little bit like Sam Presti got some criticism that I think he's not used to getting, right? I think this was probably the first time that he really kind of felt the heat a little bit of something didn't work out to this extent. And so that was kind of what I kind of felt during watching the press conference. And so it was good because I kind of felt like he held his own a little bit there. but you could kind of tell, like, I felt like he got a little bit agitated. It wasn't as quite, for some of it, he wasn't as articulate as like I was used to hearing him. He still held his composure for the whole time, but there were little times where during some questions, I felt like some of his answers were a little bit like kind of threw him off a little bit. He's not used to getting people questioning him so much.
Well, like kind of like hardball questions.
Right,
Like,
yeah.
Is there
usually
anything in particular that sticks out in your mind?
No, that was just the feeling.
There was one question I remember. I can't remember what the question was, but I just remember the way he like fumbled his words like for a minute, and I was like, oh, I don't think I've ever seen him do that before.
Yeah,
it was weird.
I don't remember the exact question, but I do, like, as I was watching it, I was thinking, man, this is a little different. Like, still really good.
Like incredible.
Presti. Like, he's still going to talk his way through something, but I did think he kind of, like Jason said a little bit, he fumbled a little bit more than usual.
You know, it's a little weird when he answers a question and doesn't use a word that's 10 letters or more. Like, that's an issue. Like, oh, he really had to like reach back in the depths of his mind to figure
Just
out
use
what he was
that
gonna
lizard
say.
brain.
Yeah.
And then on another note, he seems to feel confident, and I don't know if confidence is the right word, but I'm going to use it. He seemed to feel a little confident in Paul George returning.
I don't know if I felt like he felt confident. I think that he is probably not allowing himself to just say he's gone and
Like Jason?
What are we going to do? Yeah, like Jason is.
He's in Delusion Island with
Like,
me.
I don't think he's so like delusional to say, well, I talked to Paul and he said, hey, good things. He's probably coming back. I don't think it's that, but I didn't feel that he was just. I don't know. I didn't think that he was confident that Paul George was coming back. I felt it was more he really doesn't know. And it's still really open.
I thought his confidence was that they were being honest with each other.
Yeah,
which isn't maybe the best sign.
Which is what that's exactly what he said. And whenever
that's
he was
a good
asked,
thing, though. That's always a good thing.
At least it's kind of like the Mello thing. Like at least they're not coming there like talking out the side of their mouth, like not saying what they mean, and then you're like, well, shit, what's going on back there? Like, I don't know what they're really thinking.
Right.
Like at least they're just saying like, this is how I feel about it.
It's kind of like that. I mean, this is the Kevin Durant situation all over again, just with Paul George. And so, well, yeah, it is different, but it is a similar situation. But like, I mean, if you're Sam Presti, like, confidence probably a bad word to use, but he's optimistic and he's probably confident in his optimism that he can get the job done. Like I'm sure he felt the same way with Kevin Durant. Like, look, I can get this done. I can get this deal done. Like, we've got a lot to sell here. I'm not saying this is going to end up the same way. I'm just saying, like, there are a lot of parallels.
Yeah.
And I think, and obviously the great thing is Sam Presti's learned from all of his mistakes in 2016. He knows where he messed up, where he needed to be better with Kevin Durant. And I think he's going to take that angle with Paul George and try and sell him a little bit differently.
And
that's
agree.
why
he's hiring Jeff Van Gundy and implementing emotion off it. Oh, no, none of that's happening.
And I think when you look at the season and then you think about the trades that were made, right, before the season, the Paul George trade, and you look at it now and you're like, well,
Summer of Presti is what we had.
That was the name.
If Paul George leaves, I mean, even if he stays, Indiana might have won that trade in a landslide. If he leaves, Indiana definitely won the trade in a landslide, and the Thunder are left in losing Kevin Durant and Paul George for nothing in 3 years, and then that's brutal. That's brutal.
But they tried hard.
But on the flip side, and what I think it is important to understand is that if you don't make this trade, you're not in the conversation for Paul George in the free agency.
And you might have lost Russ.
Even if you have a 25% chance to retain him right now. 25%. That's 25% more than you had before that.
Yeah, because it was 0 before.
That's a good point.
You wouldn't have the money. You can pay him more than anyone else can pay him now.
Got that going for you.
So you have a couple things in your favor.
He's got kids to feed.
It was a huge risk. A huge risk, but you get it, right? We were all in favor of that trade for sure.
I don't regret that trade at all.
No.
Even if he leaves, still don't at least he did something that gave us
Hope.
it was expectations going into this year off of what we came off of, where it was just Russ completely dominant and holy cow, what are we gonna do now? Like at least you went for it. You took a shot on Paul George. It didn't work out this year, but he's not gone yet. And
Well,
so
remember before that, those trades happened. Like I specifically remember us talking and saying, so I guess we're just going to like bring this team back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we were just like not excited about
And
it.
I also think if you're judging this team off of this season not working and saying, Sam Presti, what were you thinking doing that trade? That's not fair at all.
Yeah.
Like if you liked the trade at the time, you don't then get to say at the end of it, well, that was stupid.
Yeah,
what
right.
are you doing?
Yeah,
you
exactly.
don't get to go back.
And
True.
like Paul George said, it was their first year together, so they're going to be back.
True, but then to counter that, it is his job. It is Sam Presti's job.
Yeah.
So the kind of the analogy I like to make is when someone makes a draft pick and you pick at 10 or whatever, right? And like you pick so and so out of Ohio State or whatever, and everyone's like, "That's a great pick." Like you don't know, like no one knows.
Especially since they were from there.
But like in 2 years, you might know.
Right.
And so it's the GM's job as he's drafting them to kind of see that and try to see ahead and if that's a good pick or not. So it goes the same way with trades. It does. So I think like while we can all say that we like the trades that he made at the time, so you can't complain about them now. That's true. But at the same time, it's his job.
Well, that doesn't mean he doesn't get blamed.
Sure.
If it doesn't work out, you still could lose your job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you're betting on this working
I mean,
out.
look
but
at
it
Sam
doesn't mean
Hinkie.
you're-
The shit worked,
Right.
and he still got fired.
Yeah. Yeah.
sucks.
But basically what we're saying is that if you were in his position, you also do that.
Yeah,
Right.
So what?
100% every
So
time.
what about Paul George? How did the season go for him? Was he what you expected? Better, worse, about the same? How did?
He was worse than I
He
expected.
was
him to
better
be.
defensively than I expected, and worse offensively.
Here's what I'll say.
I'm with you there.
We had a bunch of Pacers fans that were saying, "Yeah, that's who he is. He's
Mm-hmm.
inconsistent," and I didn't expect him to be that inconsistent.
Inconsistent
I didn't expect him to be as good as Kevin Durant was, but I didn't expect the fall off on some nights to be so incredibly. Whenever what was it, 5 points in a closeout game?
Yeah.
Like that's.
Turns out it wasn't the first time he's done
It's
that.
kind
either.
of like that's unacceptable. You can't to be as good as you are and what the Thunder need, what you were expected to be. That just can't happen.
It makes you question the superstar label. When
He's
you
not a
see that.
superstar.
Yeah,
Yeah, no.
because superstars don't become normal players ever.
Yeah,
'Cause
And
he
was,
does.
he was normal a lot.
the fire.
He can get to superstar, but he also can his
normal players is what
his
you
floor
said.
is normal player.
Yeah.
No, and Presti made a point in his presser, and he said that couple month streak where he was shooting the ball so well, I thought he was the best player in the league. And I remember having a conversation with you
He
guys
was
talking about,
so good.
is Paul George a top 10 player right
That
now?
was a question you asked on the pod.
Yeah, I mean, he was that good for
Yeah.
that stretch. Like, he was so...
That's because whenever
So good.
because he's incredible defensively. So whenever he's hitting his shots, it's like the sky's the limit.
Right.
At that
It's like,
point.
oh, you could be the best. Like you're incredible.
Yeah.
But then like when you're not doing that end of the floor, it's like
his fall off is just way
It's
too much.
kind of like
What happened?
Serge Ibaka when he was here. When he was playing like really
that's-
well defensively, he'd hit shots. It was kind of that one kind of fueled the other.
Mm-hmm.
But like if one's going really really poorly, like everything starts to drop off, and it was kind of that.
Is
kinda
it a
the way with
super
Paul
bad
George.
sign for Paul George that we just had a Serge Ibaka comparison?
Well, I don't
Just-
think you
it's not
compare him
like
as
a
players. I
comparison,
mean,
but-
at least Paul George handles the
Mentality.
ball. He can make he went through stretches this year where he made plays for others at a pretty
Yeah.
nice rate. You know,
And then there were stretches where he passed the ball to the other team every time he passed it.
Or the ref.
it was a really up and down season. But the thing is, like the point is, it wasn't just him. It wasn't just Melo. It wasn't just. It was everyone.
Yeah.
Literally everyone had an up and down season this year, and I don't know if that's a chemistry thing. I don't know if it's there's
Free-
a cancer in the locker room being Carmelo or being Russell Westbrook or being Billy Donovan or whatever the case. There's something wrong with this team, and something has to change, right? I don't think you can flip it to the same team.
Yeah, I thought it was Billy Donovan. That was what I thought was going to change. I mean, what else are you going to? This is a
Get rid of Melo.
The whole this is a other than
Solved.
Other than Popovich, this is a player dominant league. Like you have to have the players. Like he's
Definitely.
the exception to that rule, and so like it's always going.
Brad
You're always going to
Stevens.
give the benefit.
Yeah, he's
I mean,
pretty
okay. I mean,
No,
not,
I
he's
just- I
not
just-
doing that in the West.
I didn't mean to interrupt you.
But he did. He lost Gordon Hayward, lost Kyrie. So I agree. But just doesn't matter. I mean, so there's two guys that are the exception to that rule. I mean,
Yeah, it
for the most part, I mean, the players run this league, and they are going to come first. And so that's why it was so shocking to me that you just already you're saying Billy Donovan's our coach. He's coming back next year. We're not even going to think about it because what do you do? So then are you just saying, okay, guys, Paul George, you want to stay here? We're gonna run this back. Robertson's gonna come back healthy. Everybody's gonna be healthy, and let's see where the chips lay at the end. Because the part that I struggle with that is because even with Robertson, I still felt they didn't have enough. It wasn't going to be enough. They were not going to win the championship unless
They might not even have won the first round.
Yeah.
To be real.
I feel like they maybe that's delusion, but
It wasn't a given that they
if
would
you're
beat
not
the
going to
Jets.
win the championship and you look this bad, like you weren't going to if everybody was healthy. Whenever everybody isn't, you look this bad. Like, to me, there's such a big gap there that Billy Donovan it made sense to me. Like, sorry it was so tough. You were in such a tough spot, but you got to go.
Ya.
And who knows? Maybe you never know if Presti might also kind of be thinking about making like if Paul George says I'll stay, but I don't think this guy's the right coach for this team. Like I want to stay because I want to give it another year with Russ, but I don't think he's the right coach for this team. Then he's going to be gone. Like or Sam Presti will fire Billy Donovan if that's the case. Would you agree with that?
So you're saying I'll sign a 1-year deal, but Billy Donovan has to go?
Yeah.
That's scary if you think Billy Donovan is truly the guy. And I don't think anybody here is saying Billy Donovan's a bad coach. It's just sometimes it just falls on you.
Well, no,
I do agree. Yes, if Paul George says, "Hey, I'm coming back," but Billy Donovan's just not the right fit. Not even that he's a bad coach. It's just I just don't think he has the locker room and he can't coach this team. Yeah, I agree at that. But
I just think
can't.
Presti, even if he maybe even if he's thinking about maybe letting Billy Donovan go, I don't think he would have came out and said it in that press conference.
No, and can you now? Do you think he can now do that? You think now Paul George could come in and he would be like, "Yeah, all right, Billy."
Yeah.
I changed
Really?
my mind.
Ugh,
I mean,
don't
we got a
know.
lot of months till July here.
That's true, but you've already. That's
2 months.
another thing.
2
Why?
months.
Why do you come out and say it now? That's the thing. Like, to me, I think
Well, it's a scheduled press conference, and you know you're going to get questions about it.
the guy who's so calculated wouldn't come out and say, "Yeah, Billy
I
Donovan's
mean, you're not
coming
going to
back
say
next
like
year."
maybe.
Yeah, you're not going to say, well,
But
we'll
yeah, that
evaluate-
guy couldn't figure out how to get around a question. You're right. He would never know how to say, "Yeah, that guy's coming back."
Yeah, I mean, he
No,
said
he would definitely be able to work around that question, and that is 100% a question you have
Or maybe
to
his
expect to
maybe
get.
his workarounds. Yeah, he's coming back, and then he's going to be like,
I just
changed
think,
my mind.
Contractually, he's not wrong.
I just think it's too late. I think it's not going to happen. Even
no, it probably
I
isn't
don't
going to
expect.
happen.
I expect him to be the coach for sure. but
Yeah, so do
just
I.
saying.
I'm just saying that I don't think that I don't think that we should and everyone should take that as 100% Billy Donovan's the coach. Now,
probably
95% probably.
95, yeah.
But I don't think that necessarily means that something couldn't change. I mean, I think something can change.
If Russ and Paul were both like, get him out.
One thing I want to ask you
Go.
guys before we do move on is if you have any theories. I mean, we've talked a lot about Melo, and I kind of have a little personal theory of I just kind of feel like Melo is in Russ and PG's way offensively. I think that he gets in the way. And it's not Melo's fault necessarily. It's not his fault.
there you go.
But it's just the fit of it all.
Yeah.
I think we all expected this to be a lot better fit than it was. And that's on us and Presti and
all of it.
and everyone. But no, like, so I do wonder if there's something in Paul George's mind where he's like, does he like playing with Russ and thinks it'll be a lot better without Melo? Or does he not really see a difference? Is it a problem when Paul George is evaluating his future and he looks back at that Game 6 box score and he sees 43 shots for us, 16 for him? Disregard he scored 5 points. He knows that. Let's just look at this for what it is. Let's look at it how national media is looking at it, okay? 43 shots for us, 16 for Paul George, like 6 for Melo, and you lose. Is that something that could linger on here and maybe be kind of that last driving force that just drives him away and says, I don't want to play with this guy?
I mean, maybe, but he also, I mean, if you're taking what he says as actual fact, which he probably shouldn't.
Right.
But I mean, he did say in his exit interview that Russ should be the one that was pissed because he didn't take, I mean,
Yeah.
he had opportunities to take more shots. He didn't take them.
Yeah.
Did he have opportunities to take more shots?
I think so.
No, I don't know that he did. I think he took every opportunity, dude. Like, I mean,
It was a maximum of 16
he
shots.
took
and he took all-
19 threes.
Yeah.
When you look at Game 5, like the fact that he pulled you out of that, and
Mm-hmm.
Paul George played well in Game 5.
Doesn't get done without Russ, though, what
Yeah.
he did.
Right.
Russ completely turned that around by taking a bunch of shots, especially in that second half. And so, like, how do you? To me, I would struggle if Paul George was like, I can't play. This guy just is going to shoot because
And I
Russ
think-
doesn't want to do that. I guarantee you,
Yeah.
Russ does not want to shoot the ball 43 times.
And I
he
think-
wants
I'm with you.
other people to step up.
Russ
And I-
does those things because he thinks that's what it takes to win.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you saw throughout the year where Russ tried to say, "Hey, you guys do it." Like you guys deferred to them for too long. He deferred to them probably.
If you're Paul George and that's in your head, or if you're one of these national writers that has that as your narrative, you have such an egregious lack of self-awareness that you really need to go and just reevaluate everything in your life.
But I would argue with you there a little bit because now I'm with I think Russ totally did this he shoots 43 shots and 37 shots back-to-back games, whatever. He did it because he thought that's what it was going to take to win.
Yeah.
And I don't disagree with him because nothing else was working in that last game. But the point is that it also may be the only way you can win because of you. You
Right.
see what I'm saying? Like because
That's how you always do it.
yeah, because this is how the team is built around because you are the way you are 100%, and you're not really changing these other aspects of your game, and you're not improving these other aspects of your game that could really help others develop around you.
So can Russ win until he does that?
No, he needs to get better at those outside things. Now, I'm not dogging on
Yeah,
I think Russ is obviously. I love Russell Westbrook. He's an amazing player, but he has things that he needs to get better at if he
agree.
wants to
Oh, yeah.
succeed.
One thing I wish that we could see is to get an actual some truth serum in Paul George and really ask him
That'd be great.
how do you feel about this team with Paul George? With Carmelo Anthony. Is that
So
just get
what
Traber?
do you want? What do you want to do? Is that a huge factor to you? Do you still think that you can win with Carmelo?
Right.
So
I want to know if he really believes.
What do you think
that.
he would say? Because I think he says no.
I agree.
I agree.
So if you go back to what I was just saying, if you take what he's saying as facts in press conferences, he did the exact same thing that Billy Donovan did.
Pressy.
Yes, Presti. So Presti left Melo out of every future discussion, right?
Yeah.
Paul George also left him out of his little
interesting.
minute of talking about the future when he said, I want to make sure I'm on the same page as Billy, Russ, and Presti.
That kind of makes it seem like Melo might have been an issue in the locker room in the playoffs.
That's kind of what I mean. Melo's comments
definitely
combined
get that.
with those things, it doesn't seem like if you were PG and you were like, yeah, I can't wait to play with that guy again, or if you were even interested in it, that you would leave him out of that.
I will say, before the season started, you got a lot of that where it was like, man, it seemed like he was so glad that Carmelo was joining
Right.
them. Like he was so happy, and then at the end of the year,
and
I
like
was-
Melo was mentioned all the time in all of the Thunder stuff, and like he kind of seems to not be.
So maybe
much
that's
now.
something we can hang our hats on. That
I mean,
Paul George was a big factor in getting Melo here. He
Yeah.
did a lot of recruiting, and maybe he can be like, "That's my bad.
Whoops.
My bad. I owe you guys another year.
so me, Rose.
I owe you guys another year. Let's play this game."
Let's do that. Please hold.
No.
Who's that guy? Who's that guy? Who's that guy?
All
The
right.
most amazing thing ever.
It's so good.
It is the most versatile game we have. Who's that guy? This edition is going to be the season recap edition. I got 6 questions for you guys. I'm going to read kind of a statement, and it's going to be like a fill in the blank, and you guys are going to tell me who that guy is.
I'm sweating.
Number 1. I'll start over here with you, Justin. The most consistent player on the Thunder this season was
Andre Robertson.
oh
'Cause
curveball.
He was consistently really good and then consistently really hurt.
Yeah.
Well, he was great.
He
When he was hurt,
if
healthy,
you remember, he started slow this year. He started really slow.
Yeah, it was bad at 1st,
Mhm.
but then when it was good, it was real
Yep.
good.
Yep. He really fit in. What do you think?
I think I'll go with Jeremy Grant, and just because I feel like with his progression and kind of what we saw all year, I think Jeremy Grant was really consistent for this team and kind of what they needed. He actually, I would say, got better.
Yeah,
as
he
the
definitely
season.
consistently improved.
Yeah,
all
he
year.
got better, and so I would say Grant.
Kyle Singler. Consistently set his ass on the bench.
How does no one say Steven Adams?
So I was going
thought
to,
about
but
it.
it's,
I was actually thinking that, but
Steven Adams,
he
there were,
did dip a couple times. But I mean, it was very short.
no, I mean
He had a bad playoffs.
There were also there were times during the season where you would just forget that he was out there, whether that's his fault
Right.
or not. It just I don't know.
The thing that
There's more expected from Adams than like what I gave, which was Grant. Which maybe that's a little bit unfair for me to pick him, but
we can't overlook this. Steven Adams averaged 13.9 points per game this year. That's up 2.6 points per game from last year. 9 rebounds a game.
I almost got that dub.
That's up 1.3 from last year. Up 0.1 assists from last year. Up 0.1 steals from last year. Even amount of blocks, less turnovers than last year. And shooting percentage up over 5% from last year.
Do you have a most improved? Who's that guy?
I do not, but he would be it, right? As far as his numbers. Well, Grant maybe,
I
but
would maybe say Grant.
yeah.
Because I kind of equate Adams' betterness to him not being crowded by everyone.
Yeah, that's definitely a big part of it.
So
but
I think actual like improvement from where they were, like as a player to now.
that's fair.
Grant, I would.
And then you also got to credit Adams for capitalizing on that.
Oh yeah,
On
for
the
sure.
fact that the position that he was put in. Number 2, who's that guy? The most disappointing player on the Thunder this season was
Carmelo Anthony for me.
yeah, mine's easy. It's Carmelo. I expected so much more out of
Great guy.
Carmelo. Yeah,
Great guy.
oh, God.
He's a great guy.
Yeah, I expected so much more out of Carmelo than what we got.
Paul George.
Oh!
I just maybe this is on me. Maybe this is me having too high of expectations for him, but I don't feel like he lived up to the role that I thought he would.
Yeah, outside in the playoffs too. Outside of that game 6, he had a good playoffs, man. Outside of that game 6,
Yeah.
his numbers were really,
Outside of that 5 points.
really good. Outside of that,
Where
though.
he was 2 of 15, and we're not going to count the last one because it shouldn't be counted because it was a foul.
But who was good? Who was good in those playoffs?
Abrines?
You could say Paul George outside of the game 6.
Grant was good.
Grant
And Abrines?
Grant get enough
How
opportunity. I don't
surprising
know.
would that have been to have heard earlier in the season, like, hey, in the playoffs, the guys that are good,
Yeah.
Oh, you know how that's ending.
Grant
Yeah,
and Abrines.
exactly.
Yeah, okay, well, then next year, what are we going to do?
Yeah.
Next, we're starting here with Rob. The player that pleasantly surprised you the most this season was.
I mean, I said Grant for the other one. I mean, I would still kind of, obviously, I think Grant's the easy one there. But, that's it.
Yeah, it's
I was
Grant.
gonna
Grant is the correct.
Yeah, I was gonna say Robertson just because I was glad that Billy kind of found a way to use him even better this year. So honorable mention there.
Yeah.
I think you can make a case for Felton. He had moments where he wasn't good, but
Yeah.
he was decently consistent for a good part of the year. So I think you can.
I will say Felton was better than I thought he would be.
He saved the Thunder a lot.
He
Yeah.
was better than Samaje Christian the previous year.
easy killer.
The person that deserves this is a doozy, guys.
Oh, no.
The person that deserves the most blame for this disappointing season is
Me.
He puts it on himself.
I like that. That's
That
good
sounds-
leadership.
That sounds perfect. Way to
good
take the
leadership.
blame on his shoulders, bro.
You got no one? Oh no.
He's going to go cry.
I'm going Billy Donovan.
I knew you were going Billy Donovan.
Yeah.
Carmelo Anthony.
Yeah, I'll agree with that.
Yeah.
it-
I'm using him as my scapegoat.
I was gonna say,
kinda am.
is he the easy
He
scapegoat?
kind of
here?
is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he and Billy Donovan. Both.
I mean, if he hadn't
I think
said
are
that
easy.
shit at the end of the year, I feel like it wouldn't have been so easy. But,
I'm not saying this is my answer, but how much would you argue with me if I said Russell Westbrook?
probably
Not a
not a
lot.
ton.
Quite a bit, I would say.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, still, yeah, I think for what you still get out of Russ, like, if Russ had more help, like, it wouldn't have been so bad. There are so many times where I'll say this, Russ doesn't always put, like, whenever a guy's standing on the three-point line, he doesn't always put the ball exactly where he should to create the easiest shot. But, like, still, guys, these are NBA players. These guys should be able to hit shots. Russ's assist numbers could have gone up even higher, like, had he had better talent around him. And part of that problem is, probably the biggest part is Carmelo.
I agree. I agree with
Give
that.
back
The
to
only
me.
thing is, I mean, and this is an overused phrase at this point in Oklahoma City, but this team goes as Russ goes. So that's the.
Just
I
because he
like where you're
struggled.
coming from.
I
but
said
it
that
just,
earlier too, but now that I think
Yeah.
about it, I'm not so sure. I mean, because there's only so much he can do. And granted, he still is good enough. He should be able to get them out of the first
He
round.
won like every
He
game
does
last
everything.
year.
He does
But
everything.
still, I think that you have to expect more from those other guys. I think it's almost
Yeah.
a little unfair, the amount of pressure, the amount of responsibility that Russ has on
To
him.
me, I think I wouldn't disagree with you because of it's like, hey Russ, do something when you don't have the ball. Hey Russ,
Yeah.
set a screen. Like, do something when you're not the guy with the ball. Like, if he could do that, I wouldn't blame him at all. But there was a lot of times of him just standing on his knees, like with his hands on his knees, and
Yeah,
standing on your knees is
That's hard to
weird.
do,
It's a
man.
weird thing.
yeah. I guess where that would have to come from is, I think that we all expected him. I mean, it was such a big opportunity for him this year.
Mhm.
You have Paul George. I mean, you get another chance here.
And it could end with
And
that whole
did
storyline popping back up where you're
was he? This is something that's impossible for us to answer. But was he a good enough leader? Was he? Did he kind of get these guys integrated as good as he possibly could?
I think he
don't know.
tried as hard as he could.
I did too, but maybe
But
it's
maybe
just
that
not
old
who
mellow-
he is. It might just not be who he
Yeah.
is.
So what if they answer that question and what if we said Sam Presti?
Yeah.
Do you disagree with that quite a bit or?
No,
No.
I would not. I
What
wouldn't
about the
disagree with
medical
that quite a bit.
staff?
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
It's on them.
Fans.
Twitter.
Next, the young player that the Thunder should most want to hold on to is.
Alex Abrinas.
I like that answer.
I'm not even gonna justify it. It's Alex Abrinas.
I'll go Terrence Ferguson.
I'll go T for.
No Jeremy Grant.
He is young.
I didn't.
I kind of thought of him as an old person.
I mean, you could also say Steven Adams here, but he's already
yeah.
he's already held on to, so disqualify him from
I
this
think of
conversation.
him as a
Yeah, I
37-year-old.
I kind of do too. But I mean,
Grant,
I'd still
Grant is
say-
a great answer.
it is. I'll still say Ferguson.
Grand answer.
Ah!
You
You still go Fergie?
Yeah, I'll still go Ferguson.
You were trying to trade his ass.
What?
I don't know if you actually were, but I'm just gonna say you were.
It'd be fun.
Everyone was trying to trade him at the
That's-
deadline.
Remember when he played the Lakers? Oh, that was
Woo,
fun.
that
And then
game.
the Clippers the next night.
That was
Woo!
fun.
Those were. You,
Send him
weren't
to
you
LA,
there?
right?
Yeah.
Were you at both of those?
Yes.
Nice.
Correct.
What, you just that's not.
He was at both of them.
You let him brag about being. You don't help him.
Thanks, man.
No,
This is your
it
hype
was
man?
neat.
Yeah, I went on vacation this year, guys.
a couple times.
Woo! All right, last. The player whose injury impacted the season the most is.
Bing. Andre Robertson.
That's the right answer.
Me.
Oh
no.
That's probably
Okay,
true.
Andre.
Actually, you were injured this year.
Your heart was
I'm
both
hurt.
of you.
still injured.
Both of you still injured.
Got that hurt
I've
heart.
got,
I
hurt
wore a
feelings.
I've got
boot.
back stuff now.
That's
I wore a
true.
boot for like
Yeah.
6 weeks.
So is the answer Rob or Andre? Or
Let's get to some Twitter questions.
Gotta move over to the thing.
Yeah.
All right, from Dustin Glover at Fat Glove. That's with a PH, by the way. Can we just
Fat
say
Glove.
my bad and get Cantor back?
That'd be cool. I don't know if he solves this team's problems, but
Yeah, probably.
I wouldn't mind canceling that trade.
Yeah, that'd be nice. I'd
Still has a $20 million player option this year, so
it's okay. You know, he can just come back.
he's
less
more fun
money.
than Melo.
Anyone
Yeah.
else here still so delusional to think if we had just gotten past Utah and gotten to play like Houston, Melo could have stepped up.
That was
No,
his
no,
series.
no.
That was his series, bro.
Just saying.
No, I'm kidding.
No.
That's not it.
From Mark Gatos at Gatos Mark. Is the Sonics curse real? It sure seems like it.
That hurts.
That does hurt.
Moving on.
I'm going to highlight
Come on, Mark.
and delete. From Jorge, a.k.a. Dopey, at Lucky Thunder Hat. And this is a little long-winded here. Now that we have suffered our b-ball death, we are cast to b-ball hell to pay for our b-ball sins. The devil David Stern, going throwback commish, cast us to relive the most torturous moments of the season. What are the most tormenting moments of this season?
What pops in my brain, number one, is that Robertson injury.
Yep.
Yeah.
That
Oh,
injury. For some reason, the Bucks winning in OKC, where
Giannis.
Giannis stepped on the line, that just like
GS.
instantly popped in my head.
Celtics,
Oh,
just when you fall apart against the Celtics on the road.
that one hurt.
Up 6 or 7.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go
With
Game
26 seconds.
6 against the Jazz, where Paul George has 5 points.
most of the playoff games were.
When the Thunder were 8-12,
That wasn't
God,
fun.
that hurt.
Y'all was freaking. I still
hated-
had that faith.
I still remember whenever we were like, just give it like 20 games.
You guys
It's like,
remember?
wait, hold on.
It's been 20 games.
Just give it like, we just need
Just-
35. Just the All-Star break.
Second season.
Just
Once
wait
the
till the
playoffs
playoffs.
start, we're gonna be. And then
Team's built for the playoffs. Been saying it all year.
Yeah.
They're so built for the playoffs. That's why they're still in.
What do we lost something like 14 games against teams that didn't make the playoffs. If you go
Kings
7 and
games?
7, if you go 7 and 7 in those games, you're the 3 seed.
This
If
is
you go
making
10
it
and 4,
worse.
if you go 10 and 4 in those games,
You're the 3 seed and
you
get
have
swept by the Pels.
10 and 4. You had the same record as the Warriors.
We would have beat the Pels. They'll do nothing.
From our boy T at Drinking Tea, do you think OKC looks to bring back Felton at the minimum, or try to explore the market for a backup point guard who's more pass oriented?
I actually talked about that.
I think this is a really good and difficult question to answer
Yeah.
because I don't know the right answer here.
I kind of like to pursue a facilitator a little bit more.
Rondo,
Yeah,
Raymond Felton's
that'd be awesome.
not your backup point guard. I just don't think he can be for what this team needs.
he
Yeah.
he needs a secondary ball handler for sure.
I actually like the way that this team is. I don't think there's a spot for him, but like to play that 2-guard position, I would really like to have him come back and do that. But there's not a spot for him to do that on this team.
Yeah.
So I think you gotta let Felton go. Although
He
not
was-
to say like
He did a really great job.
yeah,
this
he was
year.
a bright spot on that bench a lot of the times, and somebody that you actually felt like you could count on at times, but just not for what the Thunder needed.
Seems like he's good in the locker room, which I think is big.
Yeah.
For a guy, I mean, you saw
he had
times
that-
though what he played 4 minutes in Game 5, where obviously Russ. That's only because Russ played 45 minutes or whatever. Yeah, I mean, there was time in the playoffs he just wasn't very good. Closing the season, he just wasn't very
It's
good.
just not what the Thunder need in that spot.
Yes.
But I would love him as a shooting guard playing with that bench unit, but you can't. There's no room for him there.
So someone like Rondo or someone in between.
What?
So like going forward, if you're saying not Raymond Felton, more of a facilitator, a guy that can make plays, someone like Rondo or more
Who
someone
can
in
only-
between those two guys.
Who
No.
can only pass or can
Right.
kind of short like.
No, I would think you would want somebody like Rondo. They really need somebody that can just hold it down and be able to create for other people on that bench.
Rondo's a free agent. Now he's a worry in the locker room.
He is a
sure.
cancerous fella.
But I've always loved Rondo for whatever reason, and I think it'd be really interesting to play Russell Westbrook and Rajon Rondo together if you can get Russ to move off the ball.
sounds
Because
so
If you
Rondo's
could
gonna
do that.
find him. Rondo would find him if you can get him to move.
Yep.
So you have 2 of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on one
That
team.
would be
Correct.
amazing.
Who are they each?
Leonardo,
Russ is
Leonardo,
Leonardo.
Michelangelo. Yeah.
I think Rondo's more of a Donatello.
Yeah.
Okay, I can see
I
that.
can see that. He's kind of a dick.
Oh, that's Raphael.
Oh yeah, he
Yeah.
was the
He's
dick.
the dick. Yeah.
From Gone Fishing at
Wait.
Triple
Who's
Double
Master
Kid.
Splinter in that?
we're-
Oh God,
Billy Donovan, Master Splinter?
Doc Rivers.
Sorry. Go ahead.
From Gone Fishing at Triple Double Kid, best fit for Paul George next season: Thunder, Lakers, 76ers, and Yaz.
Justin's getting depressed.
Yeah, yeah, he's getting sad as he reads.
The sad part is, I think it's the 76ers.
They would-
Basketball wise, but number 2, I think is the Thunder.
Yeah. I think he would fit really well with them.
It makes
just
sense.
about anybody would fit well with them.
Yeah, damn it.
That's the bad part. But I'll say Thunder,
Especially when
because
LeBron goes
this
there.
is the Thunder heads.
Side note, do you think that LeBron would actually fit well with them? I
think it's
wonder
a little
about
weird
him and
with-
Ben Simmons. I think
Yeah,
it's
that's
a
what I
weird
was about to say.
fit.
Yeah, no,
'Cause they're
I
like-
think you could put LeBron with anybody and he'll fit really well.
No, I know he'd fit,
I just think
but
it's
I
weird
wonder
'cause-
how much effectiveness it takes away from Ben Simmons and the future going
Because they
forward.
kind of do like similar
Yeah,
ish stuff.
He's got the ball in his hands all the time,
Basically
Ben
the same
Simmons. And he can't shoot. He's not
Just about
spotting up.
100 pounds
No.
lighter.
From Joshua Corbett at Warrior Corbett, how can BD get Russ moving off the ball more? Russ will never be Steph Curry, and I'm cool with that, but how many spot-up three-pointers per game are you cool with Russ taking if he hit 38% consistently? If he turns into a legit three-point threat, how does that change our offense?
Changes
He is-
everything.
He is working on it, apparently.
He's got to keep working on it, man. If
There was a minute he shot really well this year.
If Russ can shoot a jumper with consistency, that becomes lethal, man. It opens up the entire game for this team. when he is knocking down jump shots. And Sam Presti talked about it in his press conference. He shot really well on catch and shoot threes.
So get him more of them.
That's my favorite jump shot of Russell Westbrook's. Besides his when he gets to like his elbow spot
Yeah.
when he's wide open, that catch and shoot three, he gets his feet set. He's not wild man shooting the ball. I like it. I like the way it looks.
He doesn't have to think about it. It's
Right.
just do it immediately.
Yeah.
And
You remember that old play I was thinking about the other day when KD was around, and it was really quick action when it was with Brooks. This is probably 2013-ish, and it would be just a quick pass to KD, and they would set a little flare screen off to just for Russ, and you throw it over the top to Russ, and Russ would shoot the three. It's so weird because they had a play set up for Russ to shoot a three, but it worked.
While you had Katie on it.
Yeah, it worked.
From Johnny Callahan
Good time.
at Johnny Boy 19. Assuming PG stays, big assumption. What do you think the rest of the team will look like? How confident are you that Jeremy Grant will be back next year? And with Robertson healthy, how much more confident are you in the team advancing in the playoffs?
Awesome.
He did apologize for so many questions.
If PG stays, I think the team looks very similar to what it looked like this year. I really
Hopefully
do.
without a number 7 on
Because-
the roster.
But if PG stays, it's with number 7. There's no way. Carmelo is coming back for sure, I feel, if PG stays.
I still think they might. I mean, if he doesn't
I
want to
don't
play that
think-
role,
I don't think Melo wants to play that role and lose. But I think if you're gonna guarantee, if PG is coming back, Melo's gonna say, "I'll do it," and he'll for sure come back.
I think he's coming back either way.
Most likely,
Yeah,
most likely, I agree with you.
I
But
think he's going for that buyout.
But you can't with Paul George. Like Melo does not want to go through just a season with him and Russ and Adams. and these
Unless
other
he's
pieces.
like, I'm gonna get a lot of shots.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Like
That's
he might
what he
be
wants.
thinking that.
maybe.
We have no idea what this guy's thinking. That's the scary
He
part.
No way
he
to know.
thinks he's
Oh.
really good.
Yeah.
That's
we
what
know
he's
that
thinking.
he's thinking
Oh
that.
god, if Melo's sitting there telling Paul George to not come back.
Oh, dude.
Stop it.
that could happen.
So
Yeah.
Jeremy Grant, confidence. After hearing Presley talk about, I mean, they have like the bird rights thing,
Oh.
and that's kind of good.
I feel confident.
So I think they're gonna keep him.
Six or seven teams have cap space next season, and I was looking at the free agents, and there's not a whole lot of good free agents this summer. I think the Thunder have a really good shot at keeping him.
Jeremy Grant's a really good fit on just about any team in
Yeah.
this league, and so that's a low maintenance guy that you can keep around who will just kind of do whatever you ask of him. And so if you can keep Jeremy Grant, that you absolutely have to. You want to keep
Yeah.
him on this team.
Well, and I think one selling point to him might be like, look how much you've grown here, and you can play all of these different positions.
You
here.
could maybe start next year.
Yeah, with that one fella out of
Melo
here.
coming off the bench.
From Brian Davis for MVP at CSenior405, what percentage do you think the PG stays? And percentage that Melo stays?
Oh, we got to set percentages on it.
So percentage PG stays.
I don't-
45.
I'm not going first because you guys are gonna hate me.
I'll
45.
say 10.
Oh God.
The PG stays?
Yeah.
I'm with Rob.
Yeah,
I don't.
You're trying to get that
I think
tattoo.
they had. I think they had a chance this season to prove that they could do it, and I worry that you can't with what we talked about earlier. What does he think? Do you think if Melo is here that you guys can actually win? I don't know that he does think that, and so I think the fact that I really think Melo's just going to opt in,
But he
probably
could.
means he's
But
gone.
he could also say, he has said in the past that wherever he signs, he wants it to be long term.
Yeah.
So if he signed here
He
long
knows he's
term,
got Russ for 5.
Melo's up after next season. Obviously you have to endure it for another season.
I don't think.
But maybe you could be like, man, that money frees up after next season.
If Paul George stays here, I don't think it's a long-term deal.
Yeah, I agree.
It's-
I
it's a-
totally agree.
Yeah.
But he has said that before, and so I
getting
was wondering
sad.
if he wanted to stay in a long term. If he was like, I want to be here, but I don't think it can work with Melo, or if that's actually how he
He's
thought.
just gonna ride it out for a year.
That's what I was wondering. Like if he could look at it like that, but why would he, man?
No.
The thing that I just keep saying. For 3 years now, we've been hearing how he wants to play for the Lakers, and he can go play for the Lakers now.
yeah.
Yeah, he can do that.
He gone.
I'm going to go 65, 85 respectively.
So for Melo, you guys,
Oh.
we're all pretty high, right?
I go about 80.
30%.
Oh my god. Yeah,
I think he's not. I don't think he's opting out of his contract. I just don't think he's going to be back on this team next year.
Interesting.
Fair enough.
I hope you're right.
From Kerry Cicero at Sis66, would you rather have Melo if it meant we kept Paul George, or not have Melo but it meant we lost Paul George?
Keep him.
I'd rather keep George and still have Melo.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just sit his ass
At least
down.
there's some sort of continuity that you can build on.
Yeah, right.
At that point.
And maybe Melo has an epiphany this summer.
He says, "Oh."
Oh my! He
Not
starts watching his
actually
film. He's like,
good.
"Damn, I do suck."
Like maybe he's like needs to go to that eye care place and is like, damn, who's that guy that keeps just tossing bricks?
Ha, who's that guy?
It's me. It's not good.
From Shife at Real Fei Shi, would you? Sorry, I read the wrong word. When should we be seriously considering a rebuild? If PG leaves,
Oh.
we don't have assets to pull off a PG trade again. Don't we owe it to Russ to put him in a place he can compete for a championship? Otherwise, he may just end up like Melo in New York.
Incorrect.
It's bad news, man. Like, you don't just do a rebuild. You don't just do it to do it. Like,
You'll regret that as soon as
yeah,
you do
as
it.
soon as it starts, you're gonna be like, "Why did we do this again?"
Yeah.
You'd much rather just make the first round and lose every single year.
Well, that's what
Promise.
you're going.
Agreed.
There's zero chance you're just gonna get rid of after Russ signing. There's zero.
You're not letting him
zero
go.
chance you're just gonna let him go, and you don't rebuild with Russ because you're not gonna be in the lottery.
Well, I think they're actually saying that.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Trade
You
Russ.
can't. You
Oh,
don't. Yeah.
Right.
But the thing, there are 3 weeks that you can rebuild on the fly. The NBA is the one that's outside of that.
Yeah, it takes a long time.
Yeah.
It takes a long time.
From Mr. Why Not 18 at Mr. Not 18, had this question before, and someone's probably asked this, but if PG leaves and OKC can't find a trade partner for Melo, how mad would you be if Russ requested a trade to the Cavs or just another championship contender?
I wouldn't be
You
mad
wouldn't
at
be
all.
mad
I
at
also
him.
think there's zero chance for us.
I don't think
Yeah,
he's. I
no.
don't think he's going
No.
to do that.
Yeah, I would.
He's too
But
headstrong.
if it did happen, I would just be sad.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all.
Yeah.
Like, I would understand. I'd be like, I also want you to have an opportunity to win, man. And I'm sorry.
I want
We
Russ
just
to
get
win
some
so
gallons
bad.
of ice cream and watch some sad movies.
And then we got 2 to close it out from Always in Forever Art at Always in Forever Art, and from Caleb Smith at Caleb SM 9095971,
Wow.
asking about
Is it
is
90195?
Cantor
732.
coming back?
So Cantor has his option, $19 million, and Always
He's
in
about
Forever
to.
asked if he might opt out and if he wants to come back to OKC for the mid-level exception.
Supposedly he is he said that he was going to opt out and restructure that deal is the news that he came out with. So
Is
That-
that official? Because he
well, it's
hasn't.
not official.
he hasn't opted
That's
out.
what he said.
That would just be him staying with the Knicks for a long, right?
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
He wants to be
He's
in
not
New
coming
York.
back.
No, he's not coming back.
Yeah, I don't know why he would do that.
I'm okay with it too.
Yeah.
I like him as a person.
Yeah. We're just gonna have the same problems down the road that
Yeah.
you had with him before.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like he killed.
He's not gonna.
I get that he loves being here, so everyone wants him here, and that there's value to that
Yeah.
for sure. But
It's cool.
yeah,
But
come on.
don't though.
Come on, bro.
Yeah,
Great for the locker room.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks so much for listening. We had some notes, but we've gone way over long, and there was only a couple. Thanks for listening. Follow us on Twitter at OKC Thunderheads, and Justin's over at Thunder Tie. Subscribe and watch us on YouTube live or on demand for every single podcast. You can also find us on iTunes. Be sure to rate and review, because we did have some fools go and review our podcast 1 star. Let's cancel those fools out, man.
Bunch of jackasses.
You can also find us on Google Play, Spotify, SoundCloud, Facebook, and OKCThunderheads.com. We'll have a podcast every Thursday night, I'm hoping.
Ish.
Yeah, Wednesday, Thursday, sometime midweek this offseason, 1 a week. And next week's podcast, we will be previewing the offseason for the Thunder. We'll obviously talk about Paul George, Melo's contract more than we did today. Jeremy Grant, Josh Hustis, who are free agents, the draft free agents, and more. You want to do your Taste of Thunder?
Sure. Yeah, I could throw it in there.
All right, send us off with that.
So yeah, it's Michelob Amberbach, because like you get really excited, just like when the season started, like, oh, it's beer. Beer's always good. Then you start drinking, you're like, it's really not that great. You get to the middle. It's like, okay, there's a little bit of flavor that I'm picking up here, and then it finishes like, oh, that was an absolutely awful beer. Why did I just drink that?
Are you going to pop open another one like the Thunder are going to? Run it back, baby!
just
Run it back!
Just have another.
All right, we'll catch you guys next week. Thunder up. that camera's that way.